Welcome to the Planner Pals podcast, a podcast hosted by two true Planner Pals. I'm Jess, or Jessie Corinne.
And my name is Mark, and I go by Mark Your Pages. And we have a great episode for you today. This is going to be a really hard one to get through because we love stationery, we love notebooks, we love all of these things, but it can get a little expensive. So today we're going to talk about when does your hobby get too expensive? And honestly, who really gets to decide when it's too expensive? So it's going to be a fun one. I can't wait to get into this. But Jess, you had some very important things you had to say before we get started today.
Definitely. All right. See, we love to deal with nuance. All right. So we have to have some disclaimers in here. First and foremost, we are not your financial advisors. How much you deem to be too much for your hobby is completely your decision. We are not the ones who are going to be making you purchase things, but at least one of us is also not necessarily going to be the person to talk you out of purchasing things. And depending on when you catch the other one, she may also not talk you out of purchasing things. The point of this episode is not to either try and incentivize you to purchase things or otherwise, but more so just to have a conversation around where our kind of line is when it comes to how much is too much for certain stationery or hobby items, and also how that might be different for different people depending on a couple of different considerations. But, Mark, what do you reckon? Is there actually a too much for any kind of stationery item?
See, this is a really hard decision because you're talking to a fountain pen collector. And I think that of a lot of the stationery space and collection areas, that is probably where a lot of money can go to. There are definitely a lot of other collection people who collect cars or watches or jewelry or things like that. Obviously those can get very expensive, and honestly even with fountain pens, yes, I do believe that there is a price that is too high because there are some of these amazing fountain pens, but they cost like $1,700 or more, and like I'm not paying that much. I have some expensive pens, no doubt about it, but a lot of what I feel like creates value for an item fall into a few different brackets. I think there's a lot of that. Oh, you always say it and I always forget. It's like that cost per use or like cost value time thing that we talk about. What is it? Because you know it better than I do.
Oh gosh, you put me on the spot. I'm like, can I even remember the terminology that I use? But yeah, I guess it's like a cost per use is one way of thinking of it. Also, like a return on investment is another way of thinking about it. You know, am I actually going to get the amount of use or the amount of enjoyment or whatever kind of return you're looking for with the amount that I'm paying for this thing? I do think that with the note on fountain pens, that is definitely part of the stationery space that does get a little more pricey compared to others. You know, people who are washi tape collectors probably aren't spending $200 or more on one roll of tape, whereas our fountain pen aficionados, enthusiasts, and the like are probably spending a bit, dropping some money. A lot of sushi, magoi.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big thing for me when it comes to that, and this could also go for notebooks. I'm thinking about other pens and things that I have too. For me, a lot of it has to do with that perceived value or the material value over a brand name, because that's a really big deal. If you think about other areas like purses or other like premium luxury items out there, a lot of it's about the brand name, right? You buy the item because it's the brand name. I think we do see a little bit of that inside of the stationery space, especially for us being like big Archer and Olive fans. I mean, anytime I post anything about Archer and Olive or certain pens, there's always someone who says, oh, well, I can find that cheaper here. Oh, you don't have to spend $45 on a notebook. That's ridiculous. You could get that for $5 over here. But I think there's a lot of things around the quality of the paper or the materials of the pen or the craftsmanship. I have so many maker pens, which tend to be a bit more expensive, not always, but in a lot of cases, at least in my collection, because these are things that are made with someone's hands. They get materials, they drill, they grind, they turn, they do all these amazing things with it. And then at the end of the day, I get this beautiful pen that I know the person who it's been made by. It's got a really cool story behind it. It has a really cool material behind it, and it tends to be up there. But even with the notebooks too, I mean, we've talked a lot about the importance of paper quality and things like that. That makes a really big difference. But I do feel though that in some cases the brand name does start to up the price a little bit or add a little extra because you're saying, okay, I'm a premium brand, and then therefore I may have a premium cost.
Yeah, I think that brand and brand identity and all of that can definitely come into the overall pricing of an item. But I guess for me, when it comes to thinking about whether something is or isn't too expensive, there is a very small portion that is a consideration of the brand itself. But I think it's more so that first point you made about the kind of expected quality or value, like that kind of perception of it being worthwhile if I spend X amount. And sometimes that will come from a brand that has dubbed itself more luxury or is setting itself apart as something that is kind of like a premium product or whatnot. But I'll also kind of feel that way with the handmade stuff, like you mentioned with these maker pens. Now, I'm not out there buying handmade fountain pens. That's not really my personal vibe. But thinking about stuff like hand drawn stickers or ones that are being made by what I'm going to consider like real people, and not to say that people in larger businesses aren't real people, but I will definitely be more inclined to spend more on something if it is being made by a small business, or if it's made by somebody I know, or if it's made by, just like a community member that I want to support. In those cases, I'm usually okay with spending a little bit more on those things. Whereas if I was, I don't know, I'm gonna throw someone under the bus here, like jumping down to Journal Say, and they're like, oh, hey, yeah, $5 for this sheet of 6 stickers kind of thing, I'd be like, rack off, Journal Say. Like, that's not happening here, not for me. Whereas I might be more inclined to do that with someone who is like a small business, or like, solo entrepreneur or whatnot, who's making stationary items that I want to put in my planner. That's definitely a consideration for me.
Yeah, and you make a great point there, especially the journal say part, because recently we get a lot of people who are like, I don't know anyone that could support them. That's all AI generated crap that's on their stickers and everything else. And it's one of those things where it's hard. AI has just become like the term now. I'm just like, my wife the other day was talking about something. She was like, that looks like it's AI. And I was like, you mean computer generated, like CGI in a movie or something like that. But AI has just become this like de facto word now that people are using. But we do know when you're mass producing things like that or kind of getting them out there, and there are a lot of like points that you see on that, you're like, well, that's why they can produce so much of that and sell it for 10 cents for 500 sheets of stickers. And I think a lot of people also in that similar vein, you yourself have to say whether or not you're okay with it. There's a lot of people who will say, oh, I only buy products that are made in the USA, right? That's Americana. You're like, okay, but a lot of the times those tend to be much more expensive than the item that you would get imported from somewhere else. But I think that if you're very dedicated to that, and I 100% back it. If you want to buy from home, you should. But you also have to know that you're not going to be able to get that item as low as you maybe see it in other places. And I think that's also like a really big thing with pens and notebooks and stickers and things like that. If you're seeing, 500 sheets for $1, no one is probably likely drawing that themselves. And also with a lot of those companies too, the sticker material might not be great, or they're buying in this giant bulk order, so they are getting a giant discount versus like you talked about with some of these, homegrown or self illustrators, they're not able to buy 500 million sheets of sticker paper. They're probably buying 100 sheets at a time or something along that line, and therefore trying to figure it out. And at the end of the day, they have to make money. And so it's always a very hard thing when you're trying to justify the cheaper, inexpensive, which I also support. I think that it has its time and place versus something that is a little bit more niche and kind of in there. But I'm also very specific about when I choose that. Like I'll always choose a more expensive fountain pen over a Temu fountain pen because I've purchased those by other people's recommendation and they were trash, garbage trash. And I would have rather spent that money on something else. But that's just me, and I'm okay with that. I think it's a really important thing to say, like, it's okay. I don't know, but people get very judgy. That's where I think I have a little conflict there too, though.
Yeah, and I think that's also a point. Like, we're not here to pass judgment on other people's purchases, as said in the disclaimers. Your money is your money. We are not your financial advisors or whatnot. But because we do have, these computer generated images or whatnot that are very easy to mass produce and just like slap them onto every which what different kind of product, it does mean that we have this kind of like rise of more cost effective or like cheaper. I don't want to say cheaper because I know that sometimes people get a little bit about that, but I'm going to use it. Just know that I'm not using it in a derogatory way, or at least not trying to. But cheaper supplies because they are made, en masse in bulk without the assistance of maybe a real person. To an extent, we're not getting into a conversation about how these AI quote quote systems actually learnt what they learnt. But anyway, so because you're taking out the person who is being very intentional about the creation of that thing, it means that then you don't have to pay them, so they can make the price point of that thing lower, which means that then people can get those supplies, decorative items, or whatnot at a lower price point. Which, given the financial climate, that's kind of necessary for some people, I suppose. I mean, necessary maybe isn't the right word to use there either, because you could start to question, like, well, do you need to have the decoration? We're not getting into that either. But anyway, another kind of consideration I suppose I would make, along with the assumed quality and, supporting small businesses if I want to and all of those kind of things, is also where the item is sourced, mainly in the sense not so much of like shop local, but in the sense of how much am I going to pay through the nose for shipping because I live at the ass end of the world and trying to get anything down here can be really bloody expensive. And I know that there are some people who definitely feel me on this one because anytime I post anything about like, oh, hey guys, Archer and Olive's having a release, jump over there if you want to check it out, whatever, there is without fail always going to be at least one person who puts in like, crying emoji, shipping to here is so expensive. And I'm like, I feel you, bro. I live in New Zealand.
It's even getting expensive here. I had sold some notebooks recently and mailed them, and one notebook, it cost me also $18 to send. And I was like, this is wild. This is still within the US. It's a notebook. Now, one thing I did learn, this actually is good for anybody to know, at least again, I don't know if it's everywhere, but in the US, there is like a media postage that you can do. So for books, CDs, DVDs, and like anything media, you can ship it and it's a lot less expensive. So the problem I had is that I was also sticking other things in there. So it was like a notebook and some washi tapes and stickers and whatnot. And they know, it's like, well, is anything else in this bag, sir? And I'm like, no, it is only a notebook. They're like, what's all this under here? And I was like, don't pay attention to that. I want my $5 shipping versus the $18. But there are ways, I think, to figure that out. But it's not like that's readily available information. Like, luckily, someone told me about it. I was like, you're the best. You just saved me a lot of money in shipping. But I can only imagine what it actually costs to get things to other places. I mean, a lot of the European friends or people just outside of the US, I always feel terrible, but it's so good to know that at least in Archer and Olive, I'm sure other places do this too, that a lot of the local stationery shops are now carrying their products as well. But I'm curious though, I don't know if you have any shops near you that do that, but I'm very curious if the price of the notebook is still the same as what it is online for Archer and Olive, or if the stores are adding a little bit to their cost to, for their own retail profits as well. Not in a bad way, but just that's business.
Well, yeah, no, definitely. And we want these businesses to make money as well because they're saving us on shipping, right? But that's also a good consideration point. Like, can you get the items you want at a place that is closer to you and thus shipping is less, but you are also probably paying a little bit more for the item itself because they also want to make some money. That being said, I do believe that a lot of these places that are like, wholesalers or stockists or whatnot, they are purchasing the products at a discount from the source store. Now, obviously, I'm thinking Archer and Olive here because that's kind of, where the majority of my stationery purchasing comes from. But I do believe, I mean, somebody will call me out if I'm wrong, I'm sure, and we appreciate it for it so much. Thank you so much. But I'm pretty sure that they do get sold to those shops, stores, stockists at a discounted amount with a kind of like recommended retail price. That's kind of my understanding. The number of times I kind of thought to myself like, maybe I should become like a New Zealand stockist of Archer and Olive. Like, you love it so much, why don't you sell it, kind of a thing. And I'm like, Jessica, let's just like, park that for a second, because firstly, where are you going to keep the inventory? I know you have a spare room, but like, do you want to make it an A&O library? Like, maybe. But secondly, when I had my big clear out of notebooks, because we're not going to talk about it. I had a few, but I decided like, okay, I'm going to let go of a decent chunk of these. I'm going to get them onto new homes or whatnot. A lot of people did ask if they could purchase them, and a lot of those people did live overseas, and trying to organize the shipping on those was a task. It was a chore. Like, I went down to the post office thinking I was going to be there for like 25 minutes, fill out some forms, slap it on a box, do whatever. 3.5 hours later, I was leaving the post office and I'm like, Vogel, I am like so hangry. We need to go to McDonald's. So, like, the cost of the McDonald's that you have to eat as like a frustration point also is a cost consideration. I guess also, an aside, if we're thinking about those other kind of costs that come from the purchases of stationary items, that is also something that I am trying to be more conscious of nowadays, but previously maybe haven't been as conscious of. But it is those ongoing costs that come with the acquisition of a new thing. Now, obviously, a sheet of stickers isn't going to be, the be all and end all, like, oh my gosh, that's going to break my budget. I mean, it might. But anyway, if we think about just that one sheet of stickers, not so much of a problem. But when you start to accumulate quite a few sets of stickers, then it's like, oh, well, now I need to buy a storage system for them or an organization folio. If I'm going to go and grab myself a Cricut because I want to make my own stickers, like, that's awesome. Yeah, you're totally going to save money on making stickers, except now you actually have to make the stickers. So you need to buy the sticker paper and you need to buy the ink for your printer and you need to buy any of the kind of like graphics and resources if you don't want to design the stickers yourself or just use little things off Canva or whatnot. Those all kind of add up as well. Not to mention the time cost, which is not the focus of today's episode, but there is also that as a consideration, like the time, effort, and energy spent maintaining those resources, cleaning the fountain pen, wiping the ink off your desk, crying deeply because now your hands are stained. Like, that's all a factor, obviously.
But that's a part of owning a fountain pen. So really that should be the enjoyment of it. No, I really honestly, I hear you so much on this because I think about it a lot, especially having two teenage girls now that always want new clothes or whatever else it is. And I think fashion is another space, probably similar ish to stationery in a way, at least in the context of what I'm going to say, right? There is the fast fashion, right? You get a shirt off of Shein for $1 or whatever that is. More than likely that shirt is going to last you what, 1, 2, 3 maybe wears total before it probably starts to fall apart. Not to say that there aren't things that work out better. I remember the very first thing I bought from H&M when H&M first opened was this really cool shirt. It had a pair of headphones over top of it, and it was kind of like velvety a little bit. And this is when I was a radio DJ, so I was like, this is for me. I remember I wore it once and then I washed it, and then all the velvet stuff came off of it and the shirt shrunk. And I was just like really upset about it. I was like, I just spent $10 on this shirt. Why is it not lasting me longer than that? Versus you can find better material, better quality, whatever it might be in a shirt, and it lasts longer. I think about the same thing when it comes to a lot of the art materials that we have. You made a great point with the Cricut and the stickers and all of those kind of things. You buy all of that to make it on your own. The perception of that, and when used correctly, is 100% right. Yes, over time, how many stickers could I buy that would purchase this Cricut machine? We can spend $200, $300. I don't even know how much they go for nowadays because it's been a minute since I bought one, right? But let's just say it's $300 for the Cricut machine. And I don't know how much sticker paper costs. But when you add all of that up, you take a look and you say, okay, is this actually going to be worth it? How many stickers do I have to print out versus me purchasing for this to be worth it? And I think so many of us go through that in our mind to think, okay, that's why I'm going to buy all of this to make my own. My 3D printer so that I can 3D print this thing that I love so much that I didn't want to spend, $10 for. But what does this all add up to in cost? And I'm all about a hobby. Don't get me wrong here. I love investing in a new hobby 100%. But I think that it's just a part of the conversation that a lot of us probably have inside of our head. But when you do take that step back and you do that, like, second order thinking, I think we've talked about second order thinking on previous episodes, you just start to like talk yourself out of it a little bit because you're just like, okay, yes, I could buy this and make my own stickers. It's like, okay, I have to buy this, like you just said, then I have to buy the software, the materials, take the time to learn how to do that. And then you start to say, or I could just buy that sticker set from this really cool artist that I really, really like for $5 and have enough stickers for the rest of the month. Okay, $5 goes into $300 how many times?
I'm sure there's math. I mean, okay, technically speaking, I was like just decided to go on a little side quest there to go and look it up because I was curious. So the Cricut Explore 5, like kind of base bundle or whatnot, is about 200 US. But your point stands, right? Well, like 5 goes into 120 times, so 240 times. That's 40 months worth of stickers in theory. 40 months is like over 2 years, 3 years, almost 4 years. She can math, kinda. Like 3.4 years.
So that's what I'm saying is like if you start to break it down into that, you look and you're like, okay, I could just buy stickers for the next 3.5 years versus buying the Cricut. And again, you're catching us at a moment right now where we're doing this second order thinking, and we're like, that doesn't make any sense. I might not even like this thing in the future. But at the same time, if you get enough use out of that new product, though, then it becomes worth it. You know, you start to really kind of get into it and you're using it a lot, you're making other things with it. I think those are the kind of things for me that start to make items worth it or seem like, yes, it's an investment, but I'm going to use that for so much more. And I think that's where we get into this fun little conversation of like cost per use when it comes to some of these items, because, and Jess did a little pre-math for us. This is going to make you feel a lot better than what we just said about the Cricut machine. Let me just throw this out here right now. The cost per use, we actually broke this down for two important items: notebooks and fountain pens. So Jess, I'll let you go through this and give the people the good news, because I just made everyone real sad.
I know, right? Yeah, if you're actually not going to use your Cricut, because if we actually think about it in terms of cost per use of how many times I have used my Cricut versus how long I have had it, that would be an upsetting calculation. But we're going to make some general assumptions here. Okay, so we're going to start with an Artron Olive notebook because it's us. Come on, you know us. And if we're thinking about daily use, so you're getting in, you're using it every single day, like doing it kind of as a per day cost. So if the A5 notebook is $37 and you use it for 3 months like I do, that is going to be about 41 cents per day, which for my personal organization, that's really not that bad. But if you do use your notebook a little bit longer, say maybe 6 months, then that comes out to about 20 cents per day. And if you manage to fit an entire year in there because you're some kind of wizard, firstly, congratulations. Secondly, that's going to come out to about 11-ish cents per day. So if you think about that in terms of the entire lifetime of that supply for yourself and how much you're kind of putting forward as a daily cost for it, as long as you're using it on a daily system, you're really not spending all that much on a per day basis. But if we jump over to something like a fountain pen, say, thinking about I just set it as a $200 amount for the calculation. You may have a fountain pen that is like significantly cheaper, but
I was going to say that's actually a good fountain pen for $200, but yeah, there's definitely ones out there for much less. So if you do the math yourself, because we're really not good at this, this should make you feel even better about buying like a $60 pen, for instance.
But if you do decide to splash out and get yourself the $200 pen and you use it consistently for one entire year, so we're thinking, daily use, writing out your tasks, writing out whatever you want to do, that'll be about 55 cents per day for the entire year. So that's really not that bad, but obviously you do have the upfront initial cost of $200. But if you push this out for 2 years and actually use it consistently every single day for a 2-year time period, that's only going to be 27 cents. And of course, fountain pens don't just like expire after 2 years. You could be using this like 5 or 10 years down the track. So if we're thinking about a 10-year time frame, that's going to be about 5 cents per day. So really not that bad, but it does assume that you are going to use it on a daily basis for that longer period of time. And this is only one pen purchase. So keep that in mind.
And that's why I'm laughing over here, because I'm like, that's not that bad. And then I literally am like, oh, sometimes I use a pen once a year because I have so many of them, or I reuse other pens because they're like my favorite. It's just like this. I mean, if you're only going to use one pen, you're really thinking about it. But I'm just laughing because it's not me.
I mean, we can do the math if you want. As I said, I'm not your financial advisor, but we could calculate all of the pens. We're not going to do that. Mark doesn't need that.
No, because I'm very happy with literally my investments. I always write down the cost of all my pens because I have a digital catalog of all my fountain pens, and I probably need to go back through it and audit myself to make sure that I have them all in there. But I was looking at the total the other day. I was like, wow. Now, again, I haven't purchased all of them myself, but I do have some that are really expensive that I did buy on my own. And I had to justify it in my mind. And to be honest with you, my justification here mostly has to do with, I guess it's a little bit of brand, but it's mostly because it's like people who I know and I like, and like they're really cool. And also it's definitely about the materials. So as a person who's gotten into fountain pens, especially with maker pens, I'm realizing more and more and more that the materials that people are using, the resins, all of these different things can get very expensive. And I'm also learning too that every pen maker doesn't make the blanks. So like the long tubes that they use to like make the pens out of, a lot of the times they don't make that themselves. There's another person who makes the blanks, and then the pen makers buy the blanks from those people, and then they make the pens and then they sell it. So there's so much that goes into it, and the equipment it costs and kind of all of these things. But at face value, you know, when you go to like a fountain pen show, for instance, and you see this table filled with things and you're like, oh, and you look at, you know, and you're like, oh, $350 for this pen. So like a really good example of this would be like this fountain pen, for instance, which was $445. So it was very expensive. But the thing about this is that it is made out of a very special material. It's called Oplex. It is basically manufactured opal. And from what I understand, especially doing my research now, this itself is very difficult to make. There's only a handful of pen makers that make this, or people who make it, and then pen makers use it. So it's one of those things where like the value of the material is actually quite high, which then adds to why it has to be more expensive, because it's also then being made using a more expensive material. And I'm sorry for anyone who's not watching this on YouTube, but if anything, go on YouTube. But let me just show you as I turn this pen, the magic of this. It looks like clouds moving inside of this pen, right? And so this is one of those things where I have been seeing a lot of Opalex pens. I say Opalex, Opalex, Opalex. I don't know what it's what it is.
I mean, I'm not going to be able to correct you, my bro, but I will say opal is my birthstone and my favorite stone, so I understand why you got it.
Well, it's beautiful. It's amazing, and it's like you see them online, and you're like, wow, that's very pretty. But then you hold it in your hands, and you see the reflection, and it is truly like magic when you're holding it and you're looking at it. But when you start to understand, like, well, why does this cost this much money? Is because there's only a few people who actually make this material, and to make the material is very, very difficult to make it. So when a pen maker buys this material, I mean, right off the bat, they have a top cost of what it bought to buy, you know, the blank for it. And then the time that goes into it. I can only imagine like making a pen and then making a mistake with a material like this and like crying. It's probably the equivalent of us like creating a bullet journal spread and then, you know, accidentally like putting your pen through the entire page by accident when you're putting your materials away, right? But this was one of the deals where I've been wanting this for a really long time. And so going to a pen show, I knew going in that I was going to spend money on this. I don't know, I wouldn't say completely new, because I remember going to Rich's table, seeing this, and being like, that's a beautiful pen. And then walking around the rest of the pen show, thinking about this pen. And I actually told myself, I was like, you know what, Mark? Maybe when you go back, someone else will bought it and it just wasn't meant to be. So that's how I framed myself for this. And of course, I go back, no one had purchased it. And then I was like, okay, we're just doing it. And I didn't buy a lot that year, also that time. Let's be honest. I go to like 3 pen shows a year. But it is one of those things where it's like, okay, this is my purchase of the pen show. This is going to be amazing. But I think that's what's starting, for me, it's starting to help me just understand more about the quality, like we talked about, materials and the artistry of fountain pens. That's why I love them so much. It's not just about the writing and how you write with them. I love the materials that they're made of and how they're made, the coolness of them, all those things. So like as a collector, especially as someone recently that's been trying to buy more maker pens, I'm looking for something cool and different and awesome versus just like, oh, here's another retractable fountain pen. I don't know. That's where I kind of justify it in my own brain like this. I don't know if you use any of these tactics yourself, Jess, for anything that you buy, but it helps me.
No, definitely. I can understand the it wasn't meant to be mentality. I definitely do that, but less for stationary purchases and more for public transport. I will not run for a bus. Because it just wasn't meant to be. Like, that's definitely something I've told myself before, to the extent where I actually like missed a test at university because I wouldn't run for the bus because I'm like, well, it wasn't meant to be. Like, maybe I was just trying to safeguard myself about the potential failure of that test. But anyway, I do also find that like some other kind of like, I don't want to necessarily call them tricks because I don't think that's the right word for it, but purchasing strategies, I suppose, is that I will definitely base my purchases around where I can get a discount. I'm a sucker for a sale. We love savings, all right? Anywhere that I can use somebody's like affiliate coupon or some kind of like, sale like 50% off at a certain time of year or anything like that, I will save my purchasing up for those periods so that I can get myself a discount. with the proviso that if it is a business that I want to support regardless of their sale, because obviously when those things go on sale, they do get less money for the things that they are selling. I will go and purchase from those kind of places outside of sale seasons and without discount codes. But I am very much the kind of person who, before I make pretty much any purchase, I'm like, I wonder if there's a coupon online for this. I wonder if I can like sign up for their newsletter and get $5 off. I wonder if I could do something like that. So I will definitely apply that kind of thinking to any purchases. But I am also the kind of person who, I don't really buy a lot of stationery anyway. Like, don't get me wrong, absolutely love it. And in my kind of like, initial stages of getting into decorative planning and bullet journaling and all of those, I definitely bought more than I probably needed to. Looking at you, mild line. Oh my gosh. But nowadays, because I've kind of refined what I do or don't use, like I have more of a picture in my mind as to what will get used versus won't. And I'm trying to be a little bit more mindful about the idea of that cost per use. So if I'm going to buy this thing, will I actually use it enough times or get enough return on investment to actually warrant having that expenditure come out of my budget, kind of a thing. In particular, I think about it in terms of like, the Cricut's a really good example, obviously, because it is a big ticket purchase. So $200 for the Cricut, you use it once, that's $200 per use. You use it twice, that's $100 per use, kind of thing. As a complete side question, how many times have you used your Opalite pen now?
I have used it twice.
Well, that's not so bad. That's only like what, 222.50 per use. So you're on your way to making that return on investment a much nicer ratio, I feel.
Well, it's also like a show dog. I go into work with it because I always take my like really nice pens to work when I go in the office, and I'm just like, everyone, look at Kugel, and they're like, how much does it cost? It's like, I'm not going to tell you that, but this is just like one of the good examples of it. And I have some other ones, like I've got my big old like Heinz Koenig here, which is like a beast, and this is from a few years ago. This is my most expensive pen. This was $460, and this literally was like, I know. And I would like to say, I mean, this was like one of the only pens I bought from that pen show when I went, but there's so much about it that is amazing, because usually, if you're looking at the pen size, like, this is, the rod of the material, like this is much bigger, and it's got all kinds of cool stuff, and it's got a cool feed system on it built into it already, and it's a beast of a pen. I've never had anything like it, and I probably will never have anything like it again, because I've spent a lot of money on these pens now. But I'm saying, well, I'm a collector, and and I will also use these, and I'll use it a handful of times over the past several years. It'll be like 50 cents a use. Never in my entire life I have too many pens, but maybe $50 per use. Let's aim to get down to $50 per use.
Yeah, get that ratio down. I think that my most expensive stationery item is probably my printer, which most people probably wouldn't consider to be a stationery item, but given the fact that I use it to print out my little stickers and all of that, it does definitely get use in my kind of stationery related hobbies. That one being what, like 250, 270 US dollars or something. In terms of return on investment on that, I do print at least one thing per week. So if we think about 52 weeks a year, that's like not the worst ratio. I'm not the designated math person. Mark can do the math on that one. Okay, I'm not going to make you do that.
No, I was in like remedial math well through college. I'm the type of person, like, if we're trying to do a math together and it looks like I'm trying to figure it out, I'm never going to figure it out. I'm totally relying on you to figure it out. Just heads up. This is why my impulsivity and my ADHD do not work well together, because that's not what I'm thinking about. I'm like, oh, personality. Oh, fun. Oh, I don't have this. This is special. Oh, talking with the people who make it. Oh, blah, 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 blah. That's all the value I put into something, and say like, now I have this thing that not anybody else has, or maybe not exactly the same. So, this is one of, I don't know how many Rich made, but I should ask him, because maybe this is more valuable because it's one of one. I doubt it, but let's just pretend. But that's how I validate it for myself. But something just I wanted to do, because we talk about this a lot, I feel like, when it comes into materials, and especially when I talked earlier, we did the cost breakdown. $37 for an A5 size journal. Mark 10 years ago would have never in his entire life spent that. I think I've told the story before when I bought my first LT 1917. It cost $19. I was like, this is the biggest waste of money ever. Who would ever pay $19 for a notebook with paper in it? I thought we could go through and like share some things on like what we would personally one-on-one spend for certain materials. And you at home, Planner Pals, you could play along with this as well. I'm just very curious how our prices differ when it comes to these things. Are you ready to play a game?
Let's play a game. Thinking very Jigsaw right now. Like, there's a syringe in the box. Like, oh my gosh, okay.
Well, it's an ink syringe to fill your fountain pen, so it's totally okay.
I ain't getting in that box, bro. That box is all yours.
I'll just go through some stationary items and we're going to share what's the most we would pay and justify it however you want. Okay. So let's start off with a notebook. How much would you pay for a notebook if you're buying it on your own? And then again, justifying it in however way you need to.
Getting out my converter because I can't do that kind of money math. So I also did the math before. It was $5.35 per use for an entire year if you print at least one thing a year. Still too expensive, but thankfully that printer's going to last me a while. But anyway, I think that for a notebook, it's tricky because like $37 for me for an Archer and Olive, like totally fine to pay that. But I do know that there is a portion of that is because of the brand and because of knowing the people behind it and wanting to support them and their work. Whereas if I was going to purchase a similar style notebook from a different brand, I probably would be less inclined to pay that amount. We also need to think about the size of the notebook here. I'm not really the type to buy a B5, but a square, you bump that up to at least $39. So I wouldn't say happily pay $39, but I do pay $39 to Archer and Olive, for their notebooks if I was thinking about doing it without a discount code and without a coupon and all of those kind of things. Do also have to consider shipping though, because the shipping is going to add an additional $39 on top of the notebook cost, because ass end of the world.
I did not realize it cost that much money to ship something to you. Like, I know it was expensive, but I know it was literally double the price of the thing that you're buying. My goodness.
Yeah. That's why people always come out with their tear emojis saying the shipping is prohibitive. It definitely is. So in that case, if it is like the notebook, I'm like, this design is perfect. Like, we are made for each other. Oh my goy. I will pay the notebook cost. I will pay the shipping, which is about like, 70-ish, $80-ish US or whatnot, depending. But that is for like the bee's knees of designs kind of a thing. For a regular, like it'd be nice to, have this or whatnot, I'm probably not going to pay that much. But for something that is like, oh my gosh, this design is like speaking to my soul, I will pay that much for it.
Yeah, I am kind of in the same boat. I still even personally find it hard sometimes if I'm buying Archer and Olive full price. Myself, I will use a discount code, or I will use like my sub box code, for instance, to like save some extra money there, because I'm all about saving money. And the same thing, like I will use people's affiliate codes. That's why I like to offer affiliate codes to people, is to help them save some extra money to get that as well. If I was buying something that maybe wasn't Archer and Olive, there's been some times, I don't know if I've actually ever purchased one, but I almost purchased one. My wife talked me out of it, but it was an artisan notebook that was made from an art fair, and it was leather bound with the not handmade paper, because I don't know, it was nice paper, but like hand stitched, what,
like hand bound
registered or whatever it was. Like it was someone made this journal. The thing is that it was a one-time use journal though, and that's where I kind of was like, it's kind of hard. Most of my notebooks are one-time use, but I was just like, oh gosh, like this is really nice. But like to have like a leather and then like a hand bound book inside of theirs, like I would probably never use it. And that's where I got talked out of it. But I'd say like $40 I would pay now. But also, again, that's because I know the type of paper that I need to have in there. I know that it's going to perform well because I've used it before. But it's definitely a bite the bullet kind of thing when you buy that first one for yourself. Now, again, I am also in a very special space where like I have a lot of notebooks, so I don't like need to buy anymore, but I'm with you 100%. Sometimes you just see those ones and you got to have them. All right, let's move on from regular notebooks. What about a fountain pen?
None money, blessed. All of my fountain pens have been given to me by somebody else. Yeah. Hashtag gifting, hashtag ad. Yeah, no, I wouldn't buy a fountain pen for myself because I know that the return on investment for me would be minimal. Like, I love Iris. She's beautiful. She sits out on my desk looking gorgeous. Oh my gosh. But in terms of writing with a fountain pen, I do not have the same enjoyment that other people seem to have with that. I know some people love the kind of tactile feel of it, and they love the, way the ink flows out of it, and that kind of like scratchy feeling on the page, depending on the nib style, and all of those kind of things. And it's very much kind of like the return on investment for them is less about cost per use and more about the joy of ownership or the joy of using it. I do not have that. So for me, none money. Blessed. We will not be paying any monies for any fountain pens. What about you? I feel like that's going to be like complete opposite end of the spectrum.
Well, it is. I mean, I would say it was difficult for me when I bought this pen for $460. Like that is a lot of money. I'm not saying that this pen did not cost a lot of money. I'm not saying that this pen did not cost a lot of money. But I could justify it from a standpoint. I can say this. I didn't buy a lot of other pens when I was at those pen shows. So I'm like, oh, I saved money. Not really. But for me, like I've already explained ad nauseum, is just I can spend that much when I know that it's from someone who actually made that pen with their own hands versus some of these larger brands that are out there. I look at some of those and I was like, who the hell would ever pay $1,000 for a fountain pen? Like, that's really wild to me. So I'm a little iffy on like when I would spend that money. I would definitely spend that for handmade from a maker themselves before I would buy that from Lamy or one of the other big Pilot or something like that. Most of the time I'm using store credit or affiliate credit or a gift card to buy that, or I save up with a very specific need, but it's rare that I would ever really do that. So yeah, I'm definitely on the other opposite end of that. All right, washi tape, we talked about that earlier.
Oh, okay. So the biggest kind of like considerations that I have when it comes to purchasing tapes or like things on a roll in terms of decoration is usually the length of the roll and the number of repeats, just depending on the design. Like if it's a continuous pattern kind of tape, like a grid or a plaid or anything like that, then the length of repeat isn't so much a consideration. But for something like a lot of the ones from the washi tape shop, for instance, they will have a meter or 2 meters of different designs and then it repeats on itself for however many meters. So some of those tape rolls you're getting like, 6 or 12 or 20 kind of meters of tape on one roll. So notably the cost of that is going to be a little bit higher. But then I need to think about like, okay, sure, there may be that much tape, there may be, however many designs or stickers or whatever on that tape roll, because I'm kind of thinking about it in terms of those kind of pre-cut washi or PET kind of rolls as well. How often am I going to use specifically those? Is it going to be like one setup and then I declutter the tape? Or is it the kind of thing where I could use them in multiple setups time and time again over and over? So, given that, and given the fact that I don't have a tendency to reuse washi tapes a lot, especially if they are those kind of individualized designs that you either cut out or peel off or whatnot, my cost of this, I've like, the willingness to spend is definitely lower. And I'm also thinking about it in terms of the general quality, because a lot of washi tapes that you get, especially from more cost effective brands, see, not using the word cheaper, but they just don't perform as nicely. Either they don't stick as well or they don't peel up as nicely from the actual roll itself. Sometimes they just rip on the roll. Sometimes the kind of like shelf life of those types of tape can also be lower. So it's, gets here on day one, sticks totally fine. 8 months down the track, though, it's starting to peel up off of itself because the glue has degraded or whatnot. So for those ones, definitely not spending a lot. We're thinking like $1 or less if I can, kind of a thing, just depending on where I'm sourcing it from. But for those other ones that it's like, really nice designs, designed by an actual person, really long kind of amount on the roll and all of those, $12 or more possibly. But this is also the hard part when it comes to what I am willing to spend money on for stationery, because oftentimes I don't have to because people just send me things, which I'm very appreciative of. So I don't know, big grains of salt on that. I'll say $12 for a really nice tape roll with a decent amount of tape with like very nice designs that I feel like I'm going to have multiple uses out of. But also, with that said, I very rarely do spend that amount on washi tape.
No, actually, I fall exactly in line with you because I purchased a washi tape one time for $12 and I felt like that was really expensive. But I was buying it in an actual stationery store, like, and it wasn't a big box store. And so I was like, oh, boutique prices. But I'm in the same boat with you. I feel like just the Archer and all the subscription boxes, I have enough washi tape for like ever. And I've been destashing it myself and getting rid of it and stuff like that just because it's not my style. But I really don't foresee myself ever spending more than about that much money for washi tape. It would have to be something very, very, very special. And even this, like, not that I regret it. I love the designs. I think it's great. But $12 still seems really expensive for something that I've only used maybe twice, literally two little stamp pieces I cut off of here to see what it would look like. I got to do a little bit more work and start using that more to make it worth it. But that's kind of where I would fall in there too. Same spot.
Yeah, I guess it's also tricky because sometimes you don't get just one tape roll in the set. You get like, well, a set, I suppose. So you have like several tape rolls that each have their own length of repeat or whatever else. And I guess my $12 pricing, I probably am thinking more about those than I am about an individual roll. But I guess it just really depends on where it's sourced from and all of those kind of things. But I guess next possible item though, what about a sticker book? What would be your, top cost for that one?
Um, Ooh, I was trying to see how much I spent. So like I think I spent $10 one time on a sticker book. It was like an ephemera one. So it was the very first one. It's actually the only one I think that I own that is just like it almost looks like a soft cover book, but all of the pages have a bunch of stickers on those. So there's like 600 stickers in that sticker book. And so for me, that was like, oh, instant value. Like that's a lot of stickers in there. So I think $10 was the most that I paid. But you know what? Like most of the time, I feel like more than like $4 or $5 for like a sheet, like a long sheet of a bunch of stickers, and that even seems a bit expensive to me. So like a sticker book, I guess I would say $10. A sticker sheet, maybe $4. But again, it has to be like really, it has to seem like a lot of value for me, or it has to be a design that I really, really like to be like, yeah, I need that. Or I need to hit like a shipping quota, like spend $5 more and get free shipping. I'm like, oh, instant sticker sheet, go.
I definitely get suckered into those ones because, shipping is usually so prohibitive. So it's like, oh yeah, I spend $5 more, I save $60 on shipping. It's a no-brainer. I just saved $55. Whereas sometimes it's like, you're nowhere even near the threshold. You're like, ooh, how much more do I need to spend to actually get that free shipping? Whereas if you just checked out right now with the amount that you already had, you would not end up spending more than you're now going to try and hit the free shipping. I think for me, when it comes to the sticker books, is thinking about that idea of who made the stickers, like who drew them, kind of a thing. Because when I use stickers, I want them to be very cohesive and matchy. So I'm just sitting here thinking about my Hub and a Chub Girl ones because that's what I've been using the most recently. If they had like a 1 year full like book of stickers or whatnot that had just enough stickers to decorate each of my cyclic and monthly setups or whatever, and maybe some for the start of journal setups, that would be perfect. I would spend at least, I don't know how many stickers that would be. I wanted to say like, I'd spend $50 on that. I'd probably end up spending more though, maybe like 80 if they could do like, one full year's worth and doesn't need to have any of the like month labels or anything like that, because then that would be very much like prescribing what sticker set you used for which month. But that I think would be one that I would be worth, like it would be worth spending money on for me because I actually do actively use their stickers.
Yeah, and then it makes it so, and that it's a small company that's making it as well. Like you said, like the illustrators and kind of all the things that are in there, and you're very much in that chubby girl. What was called? What did I call them last episode? Chub Girl and somebody else.
Chub Girl is the name though. I can't. You called it like Hub, Bub, and Chubby Girl, I think is what you called them. I'm like, no, fuck.
And I still don't know the name, and you've said it several times. No,
you're getting there though. We're getting there.
Well, we'll get there. It's like the
Tomorrow paper.
The Tomorrow paper.
I love that Tomorrow River paper.
All right, mechanical pencil.
Oh, I didn't mean to pull such a face there. Oh, disgusting. No, I guess the thing is like, length of use or whatnot, definitely decent. But I'm not going to go out and buy a deluxe one because I barely use a mechanical pencil. So I think that there is definitely going to be an issue with me, like, putting specific prices to these because I'll set a price and people will be like, Jess, you can't even buy one for that much because it's been such a long time since I bought a mechanical pencil. The last mechanical pencil I got, though, was actually a gift from my brother. It's from Muji. So, however much that one is, that is how much I'm willing to pay.
I want to say probably $5, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, 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 yeah.
You're like, I have one. So mine is a little special. So I have what I have paid for one, and then I realized what an expensive one that I own that was sent to me. So the most I've ever paid for a pencil would be $50. But this, I have to but explain, it's Kaweco. It is a clutch pencil, so it holds on to the graphite inside of it, and it's also made out of brass. So when it comes to like items like this, and do I have multiple of those? Yes, I do have multiples of them in different materials, but this is the most expensive one. And again, this is because one, I've always wanted a clutch pencil. Two, I completely was like, it's made out of brass, it'll last me forever. But I really want it because I think it's really cool. But the most expensive one I own, and I didn't realize this, it was sent to me by Uniball a while ago, and it's their the Kuru Toga. It's $100. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
And I'm like, why? It's like, oh, it automatically rotates the pencil lead for you when you write with it. I actually use it all the time, and I didn't realize how expensive it was until I was doing research for this little game that we were doing, thinking how much have I paid. And I was like, oh, what do I have up here? Because I have a few, and I looked it up. I was like, why the hell did they send me $100 pencil? And I'm sorry for anyone that I may have influenced to want to buy it, because it writes really well. It's actually a really fantastic pencil, but that's a lot of money for a pencil, in my opinion. Again, no judging here, right? No one's judged me from my fountain pen purchases this entire episode, right? Right? No.
Right. No judgment. None. None from here. None from the other side of the screen. We're all goods. I mean, oh gosh, $100 for a pencil. Like, I am so glad that some people, that's like what makes their heart happy. That does not make my heart happy, but I'm happy for them.
But like maybe if you were like an architect or something where you were using that material a lot, or maybe you are a pencil artist, a graphite artist, maybe like that's an art material or a professional material that you want to make sure is really good. But yeah, that's one of those things where it's like, I don't know. All right. The last one I have on here, I don't know if you have any extras, Jess, but I was thinking about this, is how much would you pay? And again, I already know your answer. It's going to be $0, but for an ink bottle or a bottle of ink for your fountain pen.
$0. Like, I don't even know how much an ink bottle costs, to be honest. And to be fair, absolutely love the look of some of them. Like, when they're like a little round bottom flask kind of a deal with a little stopper type thing on top, and they got the shimmer ink and whatever. Like, it's gorgeous. Absolutely can understand why people buy the ink bottles without actually having a definite use for the ink. I would be that person if I didn't have more self restraint. Yay me, tiny flag. But I couldn't tell you how much like a regular ink bottle costs. It is just genuinely something I have never thought to actually purchase, so I've never gotten as far as looking up the prices. So yeah, $0.
I mean, typically they range. I would say most of the ones that I have, I think, are like the most. I'm gonna say the most I've paid. I was actually trying to see the most I paid for an ink because there is one on here. I paid $30 for a bottle of ink one time, but why is because it is from Birmingham Pen Company. It was a big ass bottle, and it's called Interstellar Bronze, and it literally looks like you're writing with liquid metal. That's the most I've ever paid, was $30, but it is a 90 milliliter glass bottle, so it is giant. I will probably never ever in my lifetime ever use all of that ink because I don't know where I would really use it other than for like cool like ink swatches or whatever. But most ink bottles I think usually cost between 10 to maybe $10 to $20 ish, I think. But again, those are not things I typically am buying on my own unless I'm like, I have to have this. And even so, like that was a lot of money. I will admit personally for a bottle of ink.
Yeah, I don't know. I was like, you said, oh yeah, 90 mils. I'm like, oh yeah, that's 2 shots. How much is a shot in America?
An ounce.
I meant monetarily wise, but sure.
I don't know. I don't count them by the only thing I count by milliliters is ink bottles because that's what they come in. I don't count anything but ounces and cups. Is the only other 1 ounce, 2 ounce, half an ounce, 1 cup, half an ounce. That's as far as I go with my fractions. um, I mean, it depends what you're getting, but I would say for like a specialty shot, $10 or $15 US. Like, and if you're just getting like a shot, like again, I'm thinking like Patron or something like that is more expensive than like Rail vodka, but I don't know. I paid $15 for Orange Crush the other day at a rooftop bar, and I was like, I could have made that a million times over because I do make them for myself at home. $15 for the actual just vodka bottle that I would buy, but say la vie. You're outside enjoying the sun. You need a delicious drink. But yeah.
It makes sense. I mean, yeah, in that case, your bottle of ink only costs you 2 shots, maybe 3, depending on what you're shotting. And I always do find that, like, having a point of comparison for the amount that I will pay for something is usually helpful. Mine is sushi. How many plates of sushi is this thing? And, will the return on investment for that thing be more so than the plate of sushi, which will last all of about, like, 2.5 minutes if I'm pacing myself? But
100%. I mean, I think about that with like coffee all the time. Like you go to a Starbucks and you get your order, it's like an $8 iced latte. And I'm just like, I mean, at this point, it's sad to say, like, I don't think about it. I also don't go a lot because I started making coffees at home, but still, like, I'm like, oh, $8, whatever, every now and again. But I mean, there are some people that spend that on a daily basis. Like that's just their coffee order every day. And I, tend to think about it that way. I'm like, oh, I won't go out and get a coffee, or I won't go out and buy lunch today. Instead, I will, buy this fountain pen because that's definitely less expensive.
I think that's actually a really good point. Obviously in this episode, we're talking about stationery and the amount we're willing to spend on those kind of things. But maybe for some of us, like myself and maybe some of our other Planet Pals, stationery and journaling supplies and such isn't where you're spending the bulk of your money. Maybe that's like not even in the realm of, ooh, is this too much for you? Whereas for some of us, like myself, that would be fast food. Vogel and I spent, and this is New Zealand dollars, spent for 2 people in a household with no children. Anyway, all the provisos, all of the nuance. But the month prior to the current one that we're filming, we spent $700.09 on fast food. That's not like restaurants, that's just takeout. So that's definitely a category where we're like, yeah, maybe some chill, maybe some restraint would be good here. Please and thank you, which is in part why I'm now on my kind of, little quest to not be eating any fast food or not purchasing and eating fast food. Thus far this month, we are doing much better. We've only had fast food once, and I think between the two of us, it was like 46 New Zealand. I don't know what that is in US dollars though.
No, I was looking. So you said it was almost $700 New Zealand. Okay, so that was be $407 US.
Yeah, so I could have bought your pen for like all of my takeout purchases.
But honestly, takeout is so good in the moment though. Sometimes you just need that. I mean, I think that's all there. I mean, anytime you look at your expenses, we do this a lot sometimes when you're like, oh, money's tight or whatever, and you go to your bank and it's like, hey, go ahead. I did this not long ago. Like go it all. And you're just like, you realize like how many times you order from Amazon. You're like, well, it was only $5 here, and I bought this $3 blah blah blah, and I got this real quick the other day, and then it is when it adds up something I'm gonna have to start taking a look at again. I was telling Jess about this earlier. We'll see how this changes my planning, but I found out in the beginning of the year that I'm gonna be going back to the office 4 days a week. So what that means for me is I will now be exposed to the food elements even more than I am here at home, where I just go down to the kitchen, make myself something to eat leftovers. I'm not as inclined to bring food with me to work. I don't know what, but I remember years ago when I was in the office, that was a major point of contention in our monthly budgeting, because it was like, oh, Mark, you bought this, and things are always much more expensive at work. Like, do I buy the $3 sandwich? No, I buy the $15 tray of sushi, or, the shrimp and grits that costs $18 because it's delicious. stuff like that where you're just like, oh, but it's definitely something I know that I'm going to have to pay attention to because I'm so very easily inclined to do that. But just overall, though, I think it is just something you kind of think about and you see. But again, you justify it in your own. It's like, yes, Jess, you could spend that much money on fast food, but there's probably other things that other people are doing, like hardcore drugs, right? You're not doing hardcore drugs that we at least know about. So you're saving money, like it's actually a better option. That's how I feel with a lot of my stuff. Like, I could be addicted to cocaine, but instead I bought a fountain pen.
I love the way we justify these things to ourselves. There's definitely a justification that I've seen in like a lot of crafting spaces. Well, hey, it's just fabric for quilts. It's not like methamphetamines. It's all good. But Planner Pals, we would love to hear from you. In terms of your stationery and planning and journaling purchases, what has been your most expensive item? If you want to also tell us how much it was and how you justified that cost to yourself, we would love to hear it. We need all of your sneaky little tricks for how we can justify future purchases for ourselves. Either let us know in the comments, or you can hit us up at plannerpalspodcast@gmail.com, or jump over to Instagram at plannerpalspodcast.
I can't wait to learn your excuses, learn your tricks. This is going to be a lot of fun, but amazing episode today, Jess. Thanks for sharing. And I always love how we can justify things based off of needs. And thank you for your maths, because honestly, I was going to be no help today. So I really appreciate you for that, because otherwise I would be leading people astray. Let's just be honest. But until next time, friends, we'll talk to you. See ya.